Albert Einstein said a human being is a part of a whole, called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is kind of a prison for us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So what exactly is this optical delusion of separation, or in other words, fragmentation Einstein was talking about? How I see fragmentation is the perception of dividing everything into parts or abstractions and seeing them as separate from one another. In other words, when you are seeing a whole with many parts, each part in that whole appears to be having random interaction, meaning the interaction is taking place on causal basis, and that each part is independent and existing separately from the rest. But this is a delusion. It may very well be that there is no random interaction taking place, and each part is dependent on the other parts and the whole of it. But the problem of the mind is that it creates this fragmentation and gives this optical delusion that there is such thing as separation. For example, when you look at a landscape, an ecosystem, it constitutes an organic whole. Yet as soon as we use words to describe it, we fragment it into lake, forest, soil, trees, air, animals, humans, etc. And that's pretty much what we do with everything else. Let me give you another analogy to help you understand it much better. Let's have a look at a biological cell. What you would notice is that each part in the cell appears to be having random interaction. And there's nothing inside the cell which you can say is alive. It just looks like an organic robot. Because all what's going on in the cell are chemical reactions and the interaction between parts, which are governed by the law of cause and effect. Yet we consider the whole cell alive, because it has mind-like properties. It can reproduce, it can react to its environment, it grows and develops, it can even learn, solve puzzles, and store memories according to some research. So if you look at a cell with a fragmented view, nothing would look alive about it. But if you look at it holistically, it would completely change your perception. And it's all about how you perceive the reality. If you use these examples I just mentioned to see the whole universe as an organism, then we would get much closer to understand reality and the nature of observer in this universe. It reminds me of what Richard Feynman said. If our small minds, for some convenience, divide this universe into parts, remember that nature does not know it, so let us put it all together. But this fragmentary worldview is not just affecting the scientists who study the nature of reality, but also affecting us, the individuals. Our lives, our relationships, our professions, etc. are all affected by this delusionary division. You see yourself as a fragment in this whole, and that's the nub of the issue here. Later in this video, I will explain how it affects you and the whole society. But for now, I want to get at how we can understand this wholeness. So the question comes, how can we not make this wholeness a fragmented idea, an abstraction, a word, a concept, and at the same time understand it for what it is? The reason why I said that is because what thought would do is it will try to understand this wholeness by making it an abstraction, a knowledge, a word, by trying to put it in a box, because that's what thought does with everything. When it wants to understand something, it just divides it, makes it an abstraction, and that's not the way to understand wholeness. If we look at the origin of the word abstract, it comes from the Latin word abstractus, which means to draw away. And wholeness is not something which can be drawn away. We have to take a different approach. It is what I call a process of augmenting the perception. In order to perceive the big picture, you have to enhance your perception. And abstraction is not the way to get there. In other words, wholeness can only be perceived, it cannot be thought. Nikola Tesla said you can be quite insane and think deeply, but you have to be sane to think clearly. I agree with that, and I feel weapons of mass destruction is an example of deep thinking and insanity working together. In other words, if the mind is not fragmented to begin with and is perceiving the wholeness, the interconnectedness of everything, it will not even grok the idea of inventing something like weapons of mass destruction. So, clarity can only come through perception, not through knowledge or abstraction. The clearer the perception is, the more you're able to perceive the whole and not create chaos in your life and the life of others. Tesla also added modern scientists think deeply and not clearly. And I think this is why some of the statements sound absurd or unscientific to them, which may not be if they get more clarity in their thinking. So the question arises, how can you enhance your perception? Here's something important for you to consider. You cannot achieve this enhancement of perception by being caught up in thought, your thinking, by exercising your thought. Thought is not the way to achieve this augmentation of perception. You have to go beyond it. Well, the reason for that is because all what the thought is an abstraction itself. Now, that's a topic for some other day, but you have to understand that being caught up in thought is not the way to achieve this clarity. Something that can help you is reading some philosophical stuff related with this, like Carl Jung's or David Bohm's material, or doing meditation, or even taking psychedelics, though I advise to achieve this clarity by healthy means only. Let's come back to how this fragmentation is affecting our society and the individuals. As you already know, the mind has divided everything into chunks. World, nations, races, groups, governments, professions, theories, concepts, disciplines, even the individuals. What that basically means is that we are operating in this whole as a fragment with this illusion of separation. Giles Hutchins, in his book The Illusion of Separation, explored many far-reaching consequences of this illusion. He said that this illusion is at the root of many or most ills in our individual lives and society. Let me give you a perceptual picture of this problem. Try to imagine our society as a big whole. In this society, there are different individuals, and since almost all of them are fragmented, meaning living with this illusion of separation, they are creating order in their lives which is not in alignment with the real order that the whole society needs. Meaning like they're operating as a fragment in this society and just doing their selfish things. Meaning each fragment is just interacting with other fragments with the illusion of separation and creating fragmented order, devoid of the connection to the whole. And because everyone is just doing their own thing, this creates conflict and chaos, which makes our society fundamentally destructive. I believe if anytime soon we don't wake up to this truth, the human race is destined to extinction. This illusion of separation is not just affecting the society, but it is also affecting you, the individual. When you deeply observe yourself, what you would realize is that you're nothing but conglomeration of your identities, beliefs, desires, ideas, etc. And most of these beliefs, desires, are very conflicting, contradictory, and paradoxical. They are the very reason for your suffering. These beliefs, desires, identities are like separate individuals or personalities living inside you. The question is, are they in harmony with each other? And the answer is obvious, no. They're in conflict because all of them are fragmented. There's so many fragments living within a single fragment, which is you, and this is why you're suffering. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in more of this philosophical kind of stuff, don't forget to subscribe my channel. I'll be uploading more of these videos, so stay tuned. And I'll see you soon.